As we serve up now the intensity of tennis action from the Australian Open. It's moving to the business end of the tournament. To talk about this, we've roped in tennis analyst Bruce Davidson. Good evening, Bruce. Welcome to Sports Live.
Lovely to be on the show. Thank you, Zion. Lovely to be with you, and hello to everybody that's watching.
Exciting times to watch the likes of Djokovic. I mean, he had a bit of a jittery start, some wrist niggles in the tournament, but here he is in the quarterfinals, a clean bill for him. And then can the likes of Alcatraz or anyone stop Djokovic from winning yet another in Melbourne?
Look, I don't think anybody's going to stop Novak Djokovic. We know that he's going for a record-breaking 25 Grand Slams. We know that he's sitting on 24. He's already equaled Margaret Court's record. The only player that I think that could do any damage to him is Carlos Alcaraz, who he says is an annoying opponent. And then, of course, we mustn't forget Jannik Sinner, who beat him late last year at the ATP Masters in Turin in Italy. But Djokovic is certainly in a sublime form. I've been watching all of his matches, and it's going to be a hard man to beat. I think he's clear favourite.
Clear favourite indeed. Now let's go to another favourite, Coco Gauff, looking really impressive. I mean, she's playing the best tennis in the women's draw, and there's quite a couple of contenders for that title there in the women's draw up against Coco Gauff.
Well, I said from the beginning of the tournament that I think Coco Gauff is going to take this title. I've put my money on the table. I think that she's looking very good. I'm feeling quite safe with my bet. But, as we go into the business end of any Grand Slam tournament, anything is possible. I've also been very surprised how defending champion Aryna Sabalenka has been carving her way through the draw. She hasn't lost many games. She's looked very dominant. And we know that anything can happen. We saw Swiatek get upset at the Australian Open, the world number one. We saw the reigning Wimbledon champion Rybakina lose. As well, she was seeded 3. So I still believe Coco Gauff has got it in her. It's going to be tough. We're now heading to the quarterfinal stage where anything can happen with all the players that have made the last 16 and the last 8 of the tournament when it started off so big. Are certainly all in for the title. So the challenge is going to be tough, but Coco Gauff's my favourite.
All right, Coco Gauff indeed. Now, it's been disappointing. We saw the back of Lloyd Harris, South Africans dwindling in terms of presence in Grand Slams. Bruce, what needs to happen for us to have South Africans in the semis of a Grand Slam? Like, the wheelchair team, they do so well.
Yeah, well, it's very sad about Lloyd. I mean, I thought he did very well to qualify. He's been injured for most of 2022 and 2023. He was playing some incredibly good tennis going into Melbourne, and he did qualify. That in itself is a feat because that qualifying event was very strong. But going back to your question, Zion, it's a very good question. Is that South African tennis are now having to regroup, and they're going to look at their incredible crop of talented juniors that they've got in the under 12, 14, 16 and 18 age groups and see what needs to be done for them to bridge that gap and become professionals. We have a very, very lack of names, not only men, but mainly women on the international arena in the top 100 and 200. And we need to really work hard at getting back to where I believe South Africa belongs. But kudos to the wheelchair tennis and the quad players who are doing so well, like Donald and KG. We really applaud them for carrying the flag.
Absolutely. And carrying the flag is the South African leadership at the Australian Open, the likes of Craig Tiley. There's been said this is a very special tournament, this Australian Open. And do you attribute it to the leadership of South African in charge?
Absolutely. Craig Tiley is just a phenomenal man. He's embraced the Grand Slam need for a Grand Slam that's got a party-like feel. He's listened to the players. He's done everything that the players want. The Grand Slam in Australia, the Australian Open, is definitely a favourite amongst the players. And it's just amazing that a guy from Johannesburg, from Bryanston, is the one that's in charge. He's one of the most powerful men in sport. And is just an amazing individual that's got incredible vision and works so hard. I know him so well. I used to stay with him when he was coaching in Illinois, and he never seemed him to sleep. But I just have to give credit to him for doing such a wonderful job, because let me tell you something, that Grand Slam is the Grand Slam to go to. So all those watching, if you want to go to a Grand Slam in tennis, forget about Wimbledon and the US Open. They're all great, but the Australian Open is certainly a great, great slam to visit.
And speaking about great, this time next week, we'll be talking about the Australian Open champions. Who do you expect to win this crown? Both, I know you know, the women's, Coco Gauff, men's, there's Djokovic. But if there was a dark horse, who would you put your biltong on?
Well, I definitely think that, as I said, in the men's singles, Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are probably the biggest challenges to the favourite Novak Djokovic. And then when we look at the women, it's looking very interesting with a couple of players out. I'm looking at Aryna Sabalenka as the defending champion, regaining her groove there. But I think Coco Gauff isn't going to be challenged that much. I think she's playing good enough tennis, and all the big opponents that she could have lost to have been sidelined, like Rybakina, like Swiatek. So I think it would be the defending champion, Aryna Sabalenka. She looks like the one to watch.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for your insights. You always light up our court. Looking forward to chatting with you when those champions are crowned.
Thanks so much. Keep your eye on the ball.
Definitely. We'll keep our eye on the ball.